Well, major changes amid the federal crackdown here in Minnesota. Here's a look at the latest. The Trump administration will soon have a new point person on the ground here in Minnesota. Sources tell CBS News Border Patrol Commander Greg Bovino has been reassigned, and Border Czar Tom Homan is arriving to the Twin Cities. Homan has decades of immigration enforcement experience. He also served in the Obama administration. President Trump says Homan will report directly to him. According to the office of Governor Tim Walz, he met with Homan this morning. The two agreed on the need for an ongoing dialogue. Another main player in Operation Metro Surge is facing redirection. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem was at the White House on Monday facing questions about her department's handling of Saturday's shooting. That's according to CBS News sources. Those sources also say Noem is facing anger from some inside her department over the public statements following the shooting. So far, she is expected to keep her job, but her focus will shift from interior enforcement operation to securing the southern border, among other priorities. Dozens more congressional Democrats have agreed to join as co-sponsors of legislation to impeach Noem. Another change, an open line of communication between the White House and Minnesota leaders. In a post on Truth Social, President Trump said Governor Tim Walz called him with the request to work together with respect to Minnesota. It was a very good call, and we actually seem to be on a similar wavelength. Governor Walz's office described the call as productive and said the president agreed that he would talk to the Department of Homeland Security about ensuring the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension is able to conduct an independent investigation, and said he agreed to look into reducing the number of federal agents in Minnesota. Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey posted on X that he also spoke with the president. He says he appreciated the conversation and says the president agreed the current situation cannot continue. Frey is also expected to meet with Border Czar Tom Homan today. The news comes as countless people continue to pay their respects to Alex Preddy. His memorial, a constant flow of foot traffic all morning. That's where we find our Adam Duxter. Adam, what are people saying there today, especially given these changes?
Yeah, Reg, I can tell you one thing is that the cold has certainly not stopped anyone from coming out to 26th and Nicollet today to pay their respects. People from this community, but also people from around the world. I could even tell you standing here right now, we're sitting next to media members who are speaking in all different languages, symbolizing, again, this is the international attention right here on the Twin Cities. But as we do talk to people who are coming here to pay their respects, they are saying largely the same thing, which is that this cannot happen again here in Minneapolis. It can't happen again in the Twin Cities. People reiterating their concerns that 2 fatal shootings at the hands of federal agents is simply too many. It never should have come to this, is what many people are saying. But we're also hearing from people who have been very much plugged into the news that you just described. Over the course of the last couple of minutes, they've watched the news about Greg Bovino. They've watched the news about Homan coming in the open line between our local leaders and federal leaders. And they say that they are hopeful, they're encouraged, but they're still taking a little bit of time. They're not quite sure that they can relax just yet.
Last night when we saw the news, so it felt like there is some type of relief. We feel there is some hope.
That's hopefully a step in the right direction, but you know, we got a long ways to go. We got an administration, we got a president of the United States who I believe is ultimately responsible for this, and he needs to be held accountable.
And Reg, many people that we've talked to today say they're simply waiting to hear what Homan has to say. They want to hear from him directly, as they have been hearing from Noem and Bovino. They also want to hear from the mayor and from the governor to hear about how those calls went, maybe a little bit more in depth, but still the emotions pouring in, and people very much closely following the news of the last 24 hours from the federal and local government side. We'll have all the latest in the reaction coming up tonight on the news at 5.
Adam Duxter live in South Minneapolis. Thank you, Adam. We've learned this morning the chief judge of the U.S. District Court in Minnesota has ordered the acting head of ICE to appear in his courtroom in person on Friday. Judge Patrick Slitz's orders comes in a case involving an Ecuadorian man who came to the U.S. illegally in 1999 when he was a minor. He was detained earlier this month and placed in immigration custody at Fort Snelling, Minnesota, according to court filings. Judge Slitzes wrote in a briefing that the Trump administration has failed to comply with dozens of court orders in recent weeks, which has resulted in significant hardship to immigrants who have been arrested and detained as part of Operation Metro Surge. The judge wants ICE Acting Director Todd Lyons to explain why he should not be held in contempt of court for violating an earlier order. The Department of Homeland Security is leading the investigation into the shooting death of Alex Preddy, but White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt revealed they aren't the only agency involved.
The Homeland Security investigations and the FBI have teamed up for an investigation, and there's also an internal CBP investigation, an internal review of what is happening on the ground in Minnesota.
Right now, a temporary restraining order is in place that bars DHS from destroying or altering evidence. If Minnesota authorities has access to the federal investigation, they'll need a judge to extend that temporary restraining order. The BCA says the feds blocked state agents from accessing the crime scene right after the shooting, despite having a warrant. On Monday, attorneys argued how unprecedented it is for Homeland Security to be taking the lead instead of the FBI or state. That's a sentiment experts we spoke would agree on.
But anytime you're taking on something like a prosecution of a law enforcement officer, you do want to be as thorough as you possibly can. And the state's frustration is they're not allowed to be.
The order in place right now lasts 2 weeks, but as we said, the state wants that extended. Earlier today, we saw the BCA at the scene of Preddy's death processing the scene. We'll update you as we learn more on that. Meanwhile, we could be just days away from a ruling to halt the federal immigration crackdown entirely. The state of Minnesota and the Justice Department were in court Monday over a lawsuit to stop Operation Metro Surge. The DOJ says the operation needs to continue because of a lack of cooperation with Minnesota authorities, but the state argued it's dangerous, illegal, and unconstitutional political punishment. During yesterday's hearing, Judge Kate Menendez grilled the DOJ about a letter from Attorney General Pam Bondi to Governor Walz that said the operation would end if Minnesota met certain demands, including turning over voter data, other state records, and no longer supporting sanctuary policies. Judge Menendez ruled the DOJ must submit information about those demands by tomorrow morning. Friends, family, and community members are mourning the loss of Alex Preddy. His parents spoke to the Associated Press about what motivated their son to protest the federal crackdown. Take a listen.
He thought it was terrible. Kidnapping children, just grabbing people off the street. He cared about those people. And he knew it was wrong. So he did participate in protests.
He was an outdoorsman. He took his dog everywhere he went. He loved this country, but he hated what people were doing to it.
A growing memorial stands in the spot Preddy was killed. We have the latest from that memorial at the live desk. Streaming on CBS News Minnesota, Maria Lizignoli joins us now. Maria, what are we hearing from those visiting the memorial?
Reg, there are a lot of different emotions as people gathered where Alex Preddy was killed by a Border Patrol agent. The spot has transformed into a space for community. All day Monday, people were seen stopping by Eat Street and paying their respects, some adding flowers, mementos, or even just pausing for a moment of silence or prayer. We spoke to mourners on how they're feeling in the wake of Preddy's killing.
A lot of frustration and anger, a lot of feelings of helplessness. No matter what we do, no matter how peacefully we protest, we're labeled as domestic terrorists and paid agitators when we're just, exercising our lawful right of assembly.
We also met a woman from Green Bay, Wisconsin, same as Preddy, who was at the memorial Monday. She brought a Packers jersey to the site as a way to pay her respects, saying she needed to bring something and that the jersey felt like the natural thing to do. Reg.
Thank you, Maria. A reminder, Maria has headlines and live updates each weekday morning on our 24/7 free streaming service, CBS News Minnesota. You'll find it on our website, Pluto TV, through the CBS News app, and on Roku TV.